All right. So this is my Kung Fu workshop. That's what we're going to do today. How do oops. Okay. Maximize, please. So welcome to my workshop. This is what I'm calling Intro to Trance Kung Fu, Awakening the Flame. I submitted a different title. That's just because earlier I had a different way of looking at it, but it's basically the same. It's about Kung Fu. It's about working with yourself, and it's about working, like figuring out ways to create a sense of calm and a sense of strength, and to give you some tools and techniques to allow you to actually move through some of your pain and remove it completely from your field of perception. So I should get into this. Who am I? I'm Ashley. Hi. I'm a YouTuber and I am a writer. I just released a book. That's actually the cover of this little thing, and it's free. It's on my website. You can get it. I think if you just Google Ashley Adamson, you'll find me. So yeah, also I'm a trans woman, she, her. I'm an energy practitioner, and I am Chinese and British. I've also crossed out some of these other things because they're not as relevant, but they're there just so you know. So who's this for? I'd say this is for anyone. Being trans doesn't really make you any different from being a human, and these are ways in which humans can solve their own problems and work through some of the harder things. But I feel especially passionate about the trans issue because for trans folks, we're going through a lot of pain and we're forced through this process of transformation. But you know, that pain in a way can also be a gift because people don't really want to transform. Transformation is a painful process. And so if there's enough pain to force you through the transformation, it's also a gift to experience transformation. At least that's how I see it. So this is for anyone, but this is especially for people who are on that transformation path. Why is this important? We'll get to that. So let's explore that. So Kung Fu or Gong Fu, Kung meaning effort or endeavor, and Fu meaning time spent. That's really what Kung Fu means. It doesn't actually mean like fighting or being Bruce Lee or combat or stuff like that. I don't know about you, but when I first hear the word Kung Fu, I think of someone getting punched. And there is no punching in this class, unfortunately, though I would love to teach y'all how to punch as well. This is about working with yourself. And when I think of Kung Fu, what Kung Fu kind of means to me is it's about exerting effort on an endeavor, such as your transition or overcoming some things that are really hard for you, and putting in the time to make that happen. It's not about combat. I kind of want to liken this to learning how to play the piano. If you go to the piano and you practice and you practice and you practice with intention, eventually you can end up being like a concert pianist. And so in this sense, this pianist is practicing Kung Fu. They're just spending time learning how to be better at what they want to do and just doing it all the time, putting in the effort. I find that with a lot of social media and personal growth and personal development, there's a story of, oh, you can just fix yourself if you buy this thing or you do this, and it's all kind of like solved. But our minds don't really work like that. It takes time, and it also takes effort. So I find Kung Fu and positioning what I'm doing in my transition, as well as the rest of my life as Kung Fu, gives me this warrior mentality of facing the things that I'm afraid of and knowing that it takes effort and time. And sometimes I picture myself somewhere up in the mountains as some kind of like ancient Kung Fu person doing mystical things. But I don't know if that's resonates with you, or if that's inspiring, or if that's like giving you some ideas of how to position your own transition. But it's not something that we can just instantly change and resolve. The mind has its own habits. We have different things that we need to work through, and reconditioning the mind is a slow process as we rewire and teach our brain how to think and perceive in different ways. I was reflecting, this is kind of my big moment where I really realized what Kung Fu means. I was reflecting once I realized that when I practice the art of practicing, that's when I realized that I'm actually practicing. Because when you say, oh, I just have to practice, you may not have good habits in your practice. But if you focus on your practice of how you practice, you start to realize the meta and all of the things involved in becoming good at practicing and iterating on the work that you're doing to become better at what you do. And when you think of martial arts and you think of the people that are, like, you think of kind of the origin of martial arts and where it starts, where it's like, okay, we just need to do hand-to-hand combat to fight people. And then that one person or that other person that says, I want to practice it every day. I want to put in a lot of effort. I want to get better and better and better at this. Eventually, you get what we now know as Kung Fu, which is like a very high form of punching someone, basically. But it's not just punching, you know, it's kicking and all of this other nuance. It becomes a philosophy. It becomes a way of living. It becomes a way of perceiving. And so I also just want to call out Wu Mei. Wu Mei is sort of like one of the five, one of the five kind of like legends of Kung Fu. There are, of the Shaolin Kung Fu, there are 5 masters, and Wu Mei is one of them, and she's the only woman. What's super important about her is she escaped prosecution, and she happened upon a Shaolin temple where they took her in. They, as Shaolin monks, needed to learn Kung Fu to protect themselves from local warlords. She elevated and continued to practice the art of Kung Fu in practicing Shaolin martial arts. And she elevated herself to the point where they brought her in as kind of like a grand master. That Shaolin temple was eventually burned down, and they had to escape because there was someone that betrayed them and let in people into their temple. The martial arts style that they had at that temple was at a very high level, and it was going to be forgotten. But all of the Wu Mei brought all of the masters together, and they perfected a form together. And Wu Mei was the practitioner who took all of the other masters that escaped together again later. And in secret, they perfected the martial form. And she basically was the one that carried that form and passed that down in secret. And that became eventually Wushu. And that also became like what Bruce Lee eventually learned. And it's really amazing to me to think that this woman is responsible for some of the Kung Fu that we see in martial arts and in Bruce Lee. And she's just a really inspiring woman. She's also vengeful. She ended up like killing the person that that like sabotaged their whole thing and like 1v1 combat and all of that. But she's a really interesting person, and I highly recommend checking her out. So yeah, so what is Kung Fu to me? Kung Fu is sort of like this mix between mindfulness practice, meditation, reflection, connecting with oneself, and also in movement, connecting with the body and being intentional with how you move as you are observing the body, as you are perceiving. Something maybe similar to describe it might be like Tai Chi or Qigong, but the way that I interpret and want to experience Kung Fu is a little different, because Tai Chi takes a very long time to start to reap benefits of it. And it's very highly structured and very prescriptive in how you move. And Qigong is really powerful too. It's an energy system where you basically focus on being able to accumulate Qi. And I think that's great as well. And I use some of that within my practice. But my Kung Fu for me has been something that has awakened my own power and given me the ability to transform. So I want to give this to you. That's what Kung Fu is to me. What is this? Oh, this is like practicing Kung Fu. Like when you start, you may like get a little bit of benefit, but the more you're consistent with your practice and continuing to endeavor in practicing whatever you are practicing, you get better and better, and it kind of like becomes exponential, but at the same time feels completely natural. And you may be far into past where you are after weeks or months or years of practice than where you were before, but it will feel effortless because you're investing and putting in the time. And with a transition, I feel like this is one of those things where we're forced to put in the time because we care so much about it. We live it every day. And in your transition, you eventually do reach that point where you go, wow, like I am such a different person and I've come so far. And I can't even maybe even relate to that old person. I don't know about you, but I've recently met up with some old friends and they remembered who I was 3 years ago, who was so unsure of herself, didn't know what she was doing, felt insecure, and just didn't like know where I was going or what was happening in my life. And now I'm in a place where I feel actualized. I know who I am, and yeah, I'm speaking to you, which is great. So yeah, so this is kind of like the transition roadmap. I made this for my book, but it's also kind of like relevant here. You know, wherever you are in your transition, there's kind of like this process where, can you see my mouse? Can you see my mouse? So like here, you're kind of like, all right, everything's cool. Oh, wait a second, maybe I'm not the gender that I'm assigned as. And you can kind of like explore that. You get euphoric and you're like, oh, this is like really interesting. And then you kind of hit this point of, oh my God, I realized I've been in denial about this and I am transgender. And then suddenly the reality kind of hits in and it makes you feel like, oh my God, I feel like crap. Like the reality of being trans is like really hurtful. And then you might hit another low and then you start to figure things out and it kind of like brings you up and you kind of get these ups and downs continuously for a while. I call this the trough because this is sort of the hardest part of the transition is all of these ups and downs that you have to go through. But eventually you kind of find your way out. You start going up, you think I got this, and you may actually kind of fumble a little bit, but eventually you kind of make your way out of that and you kind of reach this, this point where you feel like I am actualized in who I am. I feel great and I feel like I'm able to move forward. And there's this last piece, which I want to mention for those who are later in their transition, which is sort of like what appears to be a plateau, but it's not a plateau. There's just a much slower build and slower growth that happens over longer periods of time. And it just seems like a plateau because you just went through the fastest part of change where like you didn't know who you were one day to the next. And now you're like, oh yeah, I'm like normal. This is who I am. Do you know what I mean? Okay, great. Okay, so back to Kung Fu. When we kind of like work through ourselves and in working through problems, there's sort of like these three different planes through which we can work with ourselves. We can work through the physical, mental, and emotional. Oftentimes with therapy, it's mental. It's like talking about certain things, trying to work through them, trying to navigate perhaps into your past or try to draw other analogies or just kind of help you unwind. But there's also this emotional aspect that can occur that you can work through some of your problems like crying. And with like therapy, you'll get mostly mental, but then perhaps there's this emotional aspect. The physical aspect is really interesting because you can feel depressed, but then if you go and you ride a bike really fast and you exercise, you do some running, you might be able to get yourself out of whatever rut that you're in. And most of the time, the way that we solve our problems is we try to solve the problem through the plane that we're experiencing it through. So if you're experiencing mental problems, like things that are like thoughts that you don't like or that it's hurting you mentally, you may try to resolve that mentally. And if you're feeling emotional pain, you may try to resolve that through finding some love or some positive emotions. And that will work most of the time, but sometimes it doesn't. And that's when you need to like know that you can use another one of these planes to sometimes jump over and resolve one of those issues. For example, if I feel kind of down and feeling trapped, I might just get on my bike and ride for a while. And that helps me feel free and gives me gives my body a physical reaction to kind of change. And yeah, and then I think there's like this subconscious piece, and all of these pieces are here to kind of like work with the subconscious, to kind of work through the thing that sits beneath our control. And yeah, I think I'm just going to go into this next slide, which is kind of the breath. Breath is one of the most important tools that we have to work with the subconscious, because it's the thing that we can actually control and modify our own experience. Like if you're freaking out, you're having a hard time, if you focus on breath, you can actually reteach what you're experiencing and what your body's experiencing, to calm down, to realize that you are safe, that you're okay, and that you can kind of like control your situation a little bit more than what you might be feeling. But then beyond the breath, there's this idea of movement that we can combine with that. So that physical aspect, the physical plane, if there's ways in which you can apply a movement paradigm, I think this is what I'm trying to say, is when you go, can I go back? Okay, yeah, breath. Like when people tell you to just breathe, I think that's great. And I think the idea of resolving kind of when you're feeling bad or negative to just focus on the breath, and that's great. Like there's a whole kind of world of the meta of breathing, like in yogi practices, and how breathing can affect your consciousness. But for me personally, I don't want to just breathe when I want to work through my problems. I don't want to just breathe when I'm like, okay, there's this deeper trauma or there's this deeper emotional thing that I'm stuck with, and I don't know if breathing is just going to perfect it. So I like bringing in movement, and this is where the Kung Fu kind of comes in, because the movement allows you to now elevate your experience with a physical element, and you can get better at that physical element. So then your process in processing yourself becomes more of a skill that you can develop. And then the last thing is your attention. Where are you putting your attention as you're practicing can really have a really big effect. And this is the piece that we're going to talk a little bit more about when doing your Kung Fu. Is it's all about where you're putting your attention, because your attention allows you to find the paths within you that you can work through to kind of like help your own emotions in where you are. I don't know if you've ever had this experience, but like, have you ever felt an emotion physically in your body? You put that attention there, and when you're able to kind of resolve it, it also changes the physical representation of how it might have been, maybe tension in your neck, tension in your heart. So not sure if that made sense, but we'll kind of keep going. And yeah, we're going to talk about this. So it's a skill. Anyone can do it. Anyone can do Kung Fu. It just takes effort. And I want to just kind of like also say that what I'm going to show you is a little bit of movement. It's a little bit of attention. And I think I actually have some slides for this, but I'll just say very briefly, there's no right or wrong way in doing this. The kind of like stereotype of Kung Fu is this master who says, no, you're doing it wrong, or you have to do it exactly like this. And I think when you're doing this at a very high level, especially with physical combat, it does require being in a proper shape and proper form. But this is for working with you. And what I like about this is I want you to do what feels right for you and what feels intuitively correct. I'm going to give you sort of a template, and then I would love for you to kind of make it yours and how you feel. There's a spontaneity about this Kung Fu that gives you more of your personal power back, because you're allowed to step into it more and think less about, am I doing it right? And more about, does this feel right? And that, I think, is a kind of, it's an important tweak in terms of thinking when we're doing this. Yeah, Yeah, so why is it important? Kind of back to that question. Well, it works across all planes because it's emotional, it's physical, and it's mental. So that gives you a really powerful practice to be able to tackle almost anything that you're kind of stuck with. It's also applicable beyond your transition. This isn't just for your transition. You can take this, you can develop it, and you can move beyond it as you kind of continue throughout your life. It's a skill that can grow over time. And the last thing that I did not mention is you'll get unexpected superpowers. And I know that sounds like, whoa, yeah, Mia. I know it sounds like a little like what, but yeah, you will get unexpected superpowers. And what I mean by that is when you start to train your mind and your body and your brain in a way where you begin to listen to it and the nuances of what it's communicating to you, your perception or the doors of your perception start to open up. And you begin to build new connections in your brain that allow you to see things that you previously were not, that your brain just filtered out as information that was not useful. One of the most surprising superpowers that I've gotten from doing Kung Fu is I am able to watch people without looking at them. And the way that I do that is I watch what's happening within my heart, because I make space within my heart so that it's clear. And by being clear within my heart receives information about the people in the space and their intentions, which suddenly allows me to protect myself from people with ill intentions. And it also allows me to detect when someone has intent towards me. Not that intent is always bad, intent can be good. But I've been in many situations where by practicing Kung Fu, I was able to protect myself, or I was able to actually observe something going on with someone that they weren't communicating. And it has nothing to do with looking. And that's the thing that trips people out, is because I may not be watching them, and then I'll be able to kind of see and observe something about their behavior, to call it out and to kind of speak about it. So there's all kinds of superpowers that you can have from this. It's all about the nuances. It's all about starting to train your brain to notice them. And suddenly, once that kind of opens up, you'll get superpowers. I want everyone to be a superhero. That's why I'm wearing a cage, okay? These two circles, what do these two circles mean? There's the inner world. So this is basically how you perceive things. There's this inner world that you have, like your thoughts, the things that you think about. And then there's this outer world, the external world that you experience. And when we think of Kung Fu or martial arts is often focused on the outer practice because of all the physical movements. But where we kind of want to, and then here's in the center, the self. The self is sort of like this combination of experiencing the outer world and the inner world. And I think that has a lot to do with our experience of who we are, our own internal knowing, and how we kind of like build our identity from. I don't want to go as deep as I thought I was going to go into this topic, because it's just such a huge topic of what is the self. But I just want to call out that yourself is not just your thoughts, and yourself is not just the physical form that exists. You are some combination of these two things. And the more that you identify with one or the other is how you kind of form who you experience, who you are. But you are not any of these things. And I think you've maybe experienced this as you've gone through your transition, is you realize that who you were attached to and who you thought you were is not actually who you are. And as you move through this process of finding what feels right, you become more of yourself. And in a way, it just becomes inherently who you are. And that inner knowing, that sense of this is true to me, this is who I am, that's kind of the more pure version of the self than the assembled self, where you've taken things that are outside and said, this must be me. Really, like, you is more than that. So I kind of touched on those two things. So what's today's Kung Fu? So we are going to focus our mental precision on this, this area right here. It's kind of an imprecise location, but I've put this here to graphically represent, like, I want us to focus more on the self and the inner world, and then on what's going on in the outer world, like how I may be presented to you, or this physical movements, all of that stuff. I want you to put your attention on how you're thinking and where your attention is as you're doing this exercise, because that's the Kung Fu that I'm teaching you. I'm teaching you the Kung Fu of kind of facing your inner demons, the things that you want to kind of cleanse yourself of. And to do that, there's nothing outside to fight. It's kind of like inside. And I don't even think fight might be the right term. It's sort of like evolving, burning things down, letting them kind of change shape and change form. I don't know where you are in your process, in your transition, but I feel like everyone in their transition has this moment where it feels like you're burning things down that are a part of yourself, and it's painful, but you also need that part of the process to let go, so that way you can reassemble and become who you are. So mental precision, I want to define this a little bit more because it's super important. And I couldn't come up with a good acronym, so I have IAE, which is intent. So coming into this, what is your intention? What are you seeking? What do you want to do? Having some kind of intent, even vague, is a good place to start, because it helps guide your subconscious in finding and working with the thing that you want to work with. So having an intent is really powerful and really important. And the more intent you have, the more you're going to perhaps find that thing that you want to work with. And then attention, where are you putting your attention? So I'm going to be asking you to close your eyes and visualize a flame. Where are you going to be putting your attention? Is your attention going to be the fact that you're sitting, listening to a person over Zoom, or are you going to be like putting your attention on the flame that I'm asking you to look at? And when you start looking at the flame, are you going to start thinking about, oh, like, I'm imagining this flame. I'm not sure if I should do this, or like, am I thinking about this right? Or what's going on? There's all of these things that your mind kind of wants to continue to be busy on. And so watching where your attention is going and helping kind of guide it to the exercise is super crucial. And this is probably where I'm more of that archetypal, stereotypal, like Kung Fu master who's like, pay attention. But like, I want you to really put, the last one, effort. I want you to really put effort into where you're putting your attention. And with kind of these three things, you're going to be able to unlock a lot of stuff. There's sort of like one meta principle that I came upon that also, should I mention this? I think it might just be more confusing. Okay, I'm just going to say it. Intentionless intention. There is intent can be felt when someone has intent, especially to speak to you. Have you ever had that feeling where you just turn your head and you lock eyes with someone? Or maybe you even start a conversation. There was like an intent to connect, and you just picked up on that. You can have intent removed from its intention. There's actually like a substance there that exists before it has anything that it is attached to say the intention is to open the door. There is a raw energy that exists before you say, I want to move the door. There's just a feeling. I don't know how to describe it, but take that as kind of like oh yeah, let me just write that down as something to revisit at another time as I'm practicing this, because it's sort of like I would say it's kind of like an advanced meta principle to understanding the nature of of energy and intent, as well as kind of like the nature of everything, because everything is intent. And we often manifest intent through our hands. So we're going to be moving our hands a lot because we're working with intent. What do we got? Did I wire this up correctly? Okay. I think the slide stopped, so I just have to pull open my file here. Yes, okay. There we go. All right, shall we give it a try? That's the next slide. I am going to stop sharing, and I just want to see y'all's beautiful faces real quick. Is everyone ready to give this a shot? Can I see some nods, thumbs up? Awesome, some positive energy in the room. Thank you. Remember 2 things. Apply mental precision, that is intent, attention, and effort. And then remember that the physical precision is not required. Like, am I doing this right? Don't worry about that. You're doing it right. Do what feels right to you. So we're going to do 2 things. We're going to do a practice that I call the peaceful flame. And then, sweet, Crystal, I'm glad you stoked. And then the second thing that we're going to do is we're going to do what I call the natural 8, which looks like this. And it's a figure 8 in a 3-dimensional space. And that kind of like loopiness is helps you kind of like infinitely continue to do this. There's improvisation to this because you can kind of like expand it and kind of like move with it. I guess we're doing this part first. This is probably a good thing to do first because it's just, hey, we can just start getting in touch with our bodies. So hold your hands out kind of like a platter. And then you're going to drop the platter like this. And then you're going to go underneath the platter. Bring it up. And then you're going to flip your hands around to create a new platter. Oh my God, beautiful. Yes, yes. Okay, so we're going to do that again. I'm going to do the whole thing continuously, but really slowly. So drop the platter. Go down below the platter, flip it up, and then create a new platter. Yeah, yeah. Is anyone feeling anything in their hands now? Yeah, yeah. That's a little bit of tingling. You're activating your connection with your hands. And we're doing something that has intent, but there's no exact intention attached to it. My wrist cracked. That's a good thing. Yeah, yeah. Okay, so we're going to do this again a little bit faster. So drop the platter, flip it around, come up towards, and then create a new platter. Okay, this is a basic movement, and it's a very powerful one. So you're just watching me and you're kind of emulating this movement. But what I'd like you to do is, as you do this, and is it okay for me to go a little bit faster? Okay, it seems like people are getting this, so I'll go a little bit faster. So like you do that, right? Very simple. So I need to step back. Okay, so I'd like you to look at your hands when you do this. What do you see when you look at your hands? Okay, so observe yourself seeing your hands. What I mean by that is watch what you do when you look at your hands. What do you say to yourself? Do you say, I'm looking at my hands, I see my fingers, these are just my hands? Okay, so that's you observing your perception, right? So now I want you to do a flip. You know, the one that we've just done. So drop the platter, lift up, and then flip around. And then look at your hands again and say, what do I see? And then do it again and say, what do I see? Now, you know what you're going to do when you do it again is you're going to see your hands again, right? But I'd like you to pay attention to what your mind is expecting before your hands arrive in the same position again. So you're like, oh, I'm seeing my hands. You're going to do it again. And you're going to say, I see myself preparing myself to seeing my hands again. And that kind of prediction is where you're starting to see your own self projecting and creating perception. So when you do this, it's kind of an exercise in loosening what you are perceiving. And so you kind of just go, okay, can I loosen what I see so that I don't see my hands anymore? Can I just see what I see without labeling it? See if you can catch yourself perceiving before you actually see it. This is the natural 8. And it's interesting because our intent comes through our hands. Like when you think about, I want a glass, the first thing that fires is going to be reaching for that glass. So you're playing with the part of you that has intent and uses this. Won't be available to buy. Okay, yeah. So when you're doing this physical activity, you're kind of like starting to. I lost track because I read something in the chat. Yeah, my perception is getting looser. I'm loosening my perception. And this is kind of like the powerful thing of this is you start to no longer project onto your reality. And this is a really powerful practice because once you start to learn that you're projecting onto your reality becomes a lot more malleable. So you can start to improvise too. So you've got the basic form down, but you can improvise with this, right? Like you can do things to kind of like expand. So one of my favorite things is to kind of start to go like this and start to have really huge platters. Yeah, like you can just go really big. And do you feel the difference in your space as you do this, right? You can stand up and you can start to move with it. And then you can start to flow with it. And people go, what are you doing? And you say, I'm just playing with perception. And so bring your hands back here like this and kind of just don't touch your heart yet, but kind of just see what you feel now. Do you feel some energy in your hands? Do you feel some tingling? Do you feel perhaps a little bit of magnetism? The interesting thing with your hands is when you're born, your hands, or before you're born, when you are an embryo and you're being formed, your hands actually emerge from your heart. That's where they come from. So your hands and your heart may be connected in some way that the rest of your body just doesn't have that connection. So when you bring your hands close like this is kind of like a primal position for before you're born when you're a baby. There's this special connection here. And so feeling that. Okay, put your hands on your heart. Put that feeling into your heart. Yeah, take that in for a second. Okay, so put your hands into your prayer position now. This is kind of the beginning of the peaceful flame. So we're going to do . Okay, there's like a conversation going on about the recording. I would like to share this in some way on my YouTube channel. So I'll kind of talk to you folks about what I can share. I'll definitely put some of this online, not even this workshop. If I can't, I'll make one, but I'll put this online for those that want to do this later. Okay, so back to the hands. So, okay. I'm gonna do the movement and then we'll talk about it. So it's like this. And you can do other movements. This is kind of like, sometimes I do this one. And I go back and I kind of pull my magic cape, so to speak, and then I bring it back. And I'm feeling my hands and kind of the energy fields that you're kind of like creating. So when you're doing this one, I'd like you to kind of imagine this flame. This flame that okay, we're gonna go into the meditation piece and we're gonna combine it with this movement. Okay. And then we're gonna bring it back into our heart. So I'm gonna say, like, we're gonna do the meditation into the flame. And then I'm gonna say, okay, now take the flame out of your heart, throw it out, and then bring it back to your heart and then sit with it. That's what I'm gonna tell you to do. But before that, I wanna activate within you the experience of building this flame. So this is kind of the meditation piece where we're just gonna sit for a little bit and we're gonna absorb this. Okay, is everyone ready? Okay, great. Yes, ready, Ken. Okay, so you can sit in whatever way is comfortable for you. We're gonna go into this, so just be capable of doing this if you can. If you're unable to do this motion, that's totally okay. You can also do it with your mind. Okay, so close your eyes for me, please. There's a lot of energy in the room. I'm feeling it. Okay, imagine a door. And imagine stepping through this door. And through this door, you're now in a dark room. There are no walls, it's just infinite darkness. And in front of you is a little flame. This flame is illuminating these hands, these statue hands that are holding the flame in the same configuration that I've shown you. Go ahead and sit in front of this flame and just observe it for a second. See it as just a flame illuminating the darkness around the hands, continuing to create effortlessly, continuing to just burn and create heat. Now I'd like you to imagine that you can reflect the flame that is between these hands within your heart. See if you can match the flame in its infiniteness, its continual burning, the calm in which it exists in. It just keeps going. Sit with this flame. Allow the flame to just be within your heart, You are reflecting what the flame you see in front of you within your heart. Just allow it to be there. As you do this, you may feel things and just continue to move your attention back to the flame. Be the flame. Good. Every now and then you may feel your attention drift, and that's okay. Bring it back to the flame. Be the flame. Allow this flame to expand within your body. See if you can locate any feelings that may want to touch the flame. To feel its peace, its infiniteness, the continual flame. If you're feeling any friction in your thoughts or your feelings or emotions, or if you know where those are, see what it's like if you allow the flame to touch some of that too. Just let it burn peacefully. Just be the flame. Allow it to burn. Just burn. Okay, I'd like you to gather that flame back into your heart. Pull it in. Assemble the flame to your heart. Put your hands in prayer position and place your hands over your heart with your prayer position touching it. Assemble the flame and move the flame from your heart into your prayer position hands. So we're going to throw this flame outward. We're not going to get rid of it. We're just going to throw it out and we're going to bring it back. I'm going to count down. 3, 2, 1. Throw it out. Bring it back. Feel it in your heart. Does it feel different now? Do you feel different now? Okay, pull the flame out again. Throw it out again. Bring it back. Feel it in your heart. Okay, now bring that flame into the natural 8. So imagine that flame is now coming with you as you do your hand movements. Oh, wow. Does that feel different? Yeah. Move with that flame. Allow that flame to now float around your hands. see how it feels and how you want to flow with it. You can make the flame really big, and you can kind of imagine flame kind of flowing really far out and whip it back in. Just play with it. Yeah. The thing is, all of this feelings and emotions and all of it, you can remove all of the tags and just turn it into raw energy. And that's what we're doing here. It's just becoming raw. It's now just a flame. This is your power. You can do a lot of things with this. So be careful what you do. Yeah. Bring that flame back. And just like sit with it for a second. See how it feels. Sit with the flame. I'm going to close this meditation flame portion up, and I'm going to talk just a little bit longer. Thank you for trying this out with me, for being a part of this collective experience where we can all be flames together. A beautiful thing. Okay, so I kind of just do this to let some of that energy just go down and let it go into the earth. You often see martial artists do this at the end of whatever they've done. They go, you know, that's actually a super important move because all of your energy, even the cat couldn't stay away. She's better at this than I am. I love that. There's a lot of energy. You kind of feel it. There's like a little bit of anxiousness that I feel in the heart, and you kind of just want to let that kind of go down and go back into the earth. You do want to ground into the earth because this is a lot of energy. There's a lot going on here. So that is kind of like 2 parts of the Kung Fu practice. There's many more parts that I want to show you, but this is a short session and that's the beginning of the set. I do monthly live meditations on this if you'd like to join me. I also have a book on Kung Fu and I will be continuing to start teaching this more. So if y'all want to do more of this with me, feel free to kind of reach out, hit me up. I'd love to share this with you. But if I don't see you again, there's one thing I would love to tell you about this, which is that you can use this flame in many, many ways. You can go back in time and, oh my God, that's so beautiful, Kit. You can go back in time and give this flame to the child of you that is maybe stuck somewhere. This flame can be used as a powerful way for healing and actualization. And so play with this flame, see what feels right. And, you know, do the natural 8, but allow the natural 8 to expand and to change shape and to do what feels good. That's kind of the magic of it. So thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining me. It's just been such a gift and a pleasure. This is my first time teaching this broadly, and it's so lovely to see all of you today. Thank you, Miranda. Thank you, Russell. Thank you, Larry. Thank you, Charlie. Thank you, Angela. Thank you, May. Thank you, Tristan. Thank you, Laura. Thank you, Samuel, Callum. Oh my God, so many people. Lucy, Billy, Brennan, Tillian, Lex, Ryan. Oh my God, y'all are so beautiful. I'll be posting hopefully something online, and maybe I'll see you guys again, and ladies and everyone else in between. I do that. Okay, bye everyone.